There's been a video circulating recently of migrants storming the border that has polarized both sides of the argument, with the right saying that's proof there's an invasion and it's getting out of hand, it's all Biden's fault, and Democrats saying, well, why don't Republicans pass the border deal then? And a few things that I want to note first before we jump into the video is these people are usually acting out of desperation. That is something very important to consider when you see this kind of behavior, fleeing whatever hardship that they've grown up to be used to, being poor, starving, lost and confused. Maybe when you consider these things, you can understand why one may be running in the way that they are. It reminds me of the situation in Palestine where the starving civilians were running to the food trucks just to be gunned down, and people were acting like they couldn't understand why starving people might be running to aid. These are people in desolate situations running to freedom, and more border agents wouldn't fix that desperation. A wall won't fix the struggle and hardships, but you have to remember how unserious Republicans are about this issue, where they won't even pass a conservative border bill to attempt to mediate it because Trump needs something to run on, and let alone Republicans, if they remove sanctions, what else are they going to fearmonger to? So there's no chance of them doing things that actually fix these problems, removing sanctions, committing to measures that would fix the driving force of immigration. Instead, they just want to point to it and say, there's a problem. And here's Jessica Tarlov just perfectly highlighting this issue.
I'm sure that things like this happen constantly, and it's tough, and they're understaffed, and those are things that the bipartisan border bill would get done. But I've noticed the proverbial tea leaves are saying this just isn't going to happen. And we know that Donald Trump wants to run on it. That's fine. But it's not going to get passed, right, by the time that the election comes around. So this is what it's going to be like.
The border has been an issue for decades now, and the pandemic on top of that created extra circumstances that accelerated the need and the desperation that causes migration. This last decade, while immigration from Mexico has dropped, despite what they want you to believe, you begin seeing an interesting picture painted in the countries that we see it rising in: Venezuela, Honduras, Colombia, Brazil, Nigeria, Cuba, and the Philippines. Notice what all these countries have in common. We heavily interfere in these countries' economies through sanctions and other measures that just keep them economically strangleholded. When you match up the effects of economic sanctions, US and UN ones in these countries, especially over long periods of time, it's things like diminished economy, poorer health and educational outcomes. Oftentimes, violence or political takeover comes shortly after. And when you pull the top reasons for immigration, they line up one-to-one: economic opportunity, better education, quality healthcare, and escaping violence or political unrest. When you look at any research on the matter, any bit of data, any bit of numbers, upwards of 20% of immigration can be directly linked to sanctions. If we really wanted to fix this issue, stop meddling in other countries. Lift the sanctions where immigration has spiked since COVID. Put more money into asylum claims, visa judges, so the system isn't getting backed up. You have people waiting forever. Allow these people the opportunity to work and contribute, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Have a process in which actually will allow them to enter or see that becoming possible, not one that puts them on a list where maybe they'll get called a year later, hopefully, and go wait in Mexico until you do get called. It should be clear how this is just a barrier that then further incentivizes rushing the border or entering illegally in the way that you just saw in that clip, because it's do that or maybe you never get called. But instead, immigration is something Republicans will always choose to just fearmonger about without ever attempting to fix, because if you don't address the real crux of the issue, there will always be clips like this, and the right needs clips like this. There will always be talking points and fear to monger. And that's all Republicans want anyway, because they're aptly outgunned in the politicking department when it comes to Democrats. And they've lost so much ground with immigrants due to their just xenophobic and racist behavior and rhetoric on the issue. They are scared shitless of them becoming citizens and having an actual vote and voice in our democracy, which just adds to another reason why they don't like them and will always be against them. If you enjoyed this video, we're Social Society. We're a commentary channel influenced by politics, society, and the economy. We are pretty left-leaning on this channel, but we're open to our right-wingers as well. The biggest thing here is having conversations that get everyone to the bottom of the truth. If that sounds like something that could interest you, consider smashing that subscribe button, leaving us a like, or even commenting on this video. We even have memberships available as low as $3 if you'd like to support, because the only way we become a society is together.